Banana Slam Jam.
So first and foremost, this is a 3K review of a mid-tiny. He is a tiny spammer, self-proclaimed, 25 level Dota plus, as you can see here. He said, I felt like even though I did well, I fucked up mid-game and probably made many mistakes. Yeah, so I will say first and foremost, Tiny is obviously not a meta hero right now. But at the 3K bracket, you can pretty much make anything work. I don't really promote hero spamming, but if you want to do it, I will review a replay regardless. Let's check out what happens here.
Even exist before I arrived.
Reasonable starting items. You're against a Medusa. So something you can do when the lane's on your tower or the wave's on your hill like this. So first and foremost, I wouldn't have attacked the creep wave that one time. You get this attack, and what you can do is you can walk at the Medusa right here. So what that does is you effectively are a melee hero with 2 armor, because you have this, and 66 damage. He is a ranged hero with 3 armor and 59 damage. It's actually not that great, but either way, you have a lot more health than he does. So it's still a good trade. So what this does is when the creep's on your hill, you can force them to make a really weird decision. You can force him to fight you, or you can force him to go for the creep. So what I would start doing is, right when this creep's about 30% health, you just walk at this guy. And what that will do is it'll force him to use his snake for the CS, it'll force him to back off, or it will force him to take damage while he goes for the creep. Instead, you try to fight him for the creep when you have 66 damage and he has 59, and he gets it. It's kind of like one of those where if you... certain lanes, it's better to deny, certain lanes, it's better to harass. So against heroes like Medusa, when you have it on your hill, punish them for having it on your hill. This guy's not using creep aggro at all. Punish him for not using creep aggro. People in your bracket aren't going to use it, so make sure they get punished for not using it. Like right here, instead of hitting the creep twice, you posture yourself. If he walks forward, you hit him. If he walks back, then you deny it twice. Notice how you're basically allowing him to play right here. Because your creep's low, he's forcing himself to have to be like here, right? So in lane, you should always try to take advantage of anything the opponent has to do. And what I mean is he has to be right here. So he's a ranged hero, you're a melee hero. That allows you to close the gap on him right here. So instead of helping him get this creep dead faster, utilize the fact that this creep puts him out of position and walk forward. Make him make the decision rather than what you just did. Same thing here. Why can't I see your skill levels? There you go. Notice how he did it to you.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
Okay, let's see what you decided to do here. I'm under the impression, unless you absolutely have to, you're not supposed to throw your tree, but I have no information to go off of because nobody plays Tiny Core, and I'll just trust you on that one. But worth considering that without your tree, you're pretty useless.
Dire's courier has been killed.
In those types of situations, if you're going to utilize Avalanche, you might as well do it ahead of time rather than letting him click you twice. So like right here, just use it right now. And by the time the creep's dead, your Avalanche will have been used. You could even Avalanche and hit this creep twice rather than going for this one. The main point of these ranges is that they don't get denied. So you can Avalanche him right now and then go for this one. You're super low on health and you're rushing a bottle. I think that's a little bit greedy. You're basically forcing yourself to play incredibly passive. So what this means for you in this specific matchup is that you either need to buy salves or you need to not buy this bracer and just go straight for the bottle. Those are the two options. Either way, it is unacceptable to be sitting at this low of health for this long. I assure you, you'll never see this in a really good mid lane player. It's just too abusable, and you'll just get punished. If you don't represent any threat to the opponent, they're just going to click you a bunch. And when you're a 500 HP tiny, you just don't represent any threat. So this bracer is either bad, or you need to fly out more salves. Those are your two choices. There is no other option. Anywhere in between is just, you know, you're just accepting inefficiency. And the inefficiency in this case results in Medusa farming way better than you. Or just farming more in general. Like, not necessarily more than you, but she gets more CS because you're not being aggressive at all. I think you're throwing your tree way too much. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Like, you could have done that when she was going for these two creeps. Notice how you're, like, really prioritizing getting every single deny. Like, see how out of position this fucker is? Like, why is it that you have to deny the creeps before you just run at him right here? Like, why not just run at him right there? He actually stays out of position so long. Look at that. So, my main emphasis that I'm making to you out of all of this is that you need to stop thinking creeps are the most important thing in the world and realize what creeps mean. Every creep, every last hit, every deny, you have to choose whether or not it is more efficient to go for the last hit or the deny, or it is more efficient to hit the guy, or, you know, punish him with abilities. And you're basically requiring your own creeps to be dead before you do anything. It's very obvious after watching the first two waves and then watching that example right there, where this guy was probably out of position for 5 seconds, and you were still focused on getting the deny. So rather than focusing on making sure you get every deny, focus on like watching better mid laners and see what they do when the opponent's going for a CS and how often they punish the guy or try to make him take extra damage or make him take awkward trades because there's a creep getting low. Almost every movement by mid laners is dictated by the health of their own and the enemy creeps. So utilize that to your advantage against players who will not think about it at all. So you do kill this guy, which is good, but it does show me that you just prioritize denies way more than just hitting the guy. If you hit the guy enough times, you won't even have to worry about out-denying him anymore. He just won't be there anymore. So you do get the kill, which was good. Got your level 6. You do a lot of damage now. I really think you need to stop throwing this tree. I'm not sure, though. You're being, like, kind of lazy about the efficiency of your tree usage, I think. That was fine. Like, obviously, if you're going for kills, it's fine to throw your tree. Okay. So in this particular case, it's really important that you don't relinquish the aggression that you're posturing. So this goes the exact same as, like, 2 minutes into the lane. When you get this kill, like, you gained a lot of XP on this guy, and the amount of gold you spent, or the amount of gold you gained from killing him, can just be spent on maintaining aggression rather than anything else. You should have flown yourself a salve and like a mango and a clarity like almost immediately. You should be very adamant about making sure that this guy continues getting owned. So making sure you realize, I talk about this in so many of my replay analysis, so many of my coaching sessions. You get kills, fly yourself the necessary items to be ready to do it again when the guy comes back to life. The only exception is if you're like really close to a bottle, or like really close to a big item or something, or like if you're Ember and you're really close to level 6 and you know you want to wait till you're level 6 to do any of that. But in this example, you're not waiting for anything. You're just sitting at half health, a third mana, right? So it's just an efficiency. So you're electing to go back to base, it seems like. Yeah, I see this a lot in your bracket. A lot of being chill with being unable to do anything. What I mean by that is, are you making any moves? Are you ganking? Are you being aggressive? No. Why? Because you don't have any health. That's not acceptable. Like, you can't miss windows of opportunity. That's what I'm going for here. Like, if you watch good mid laners, the idea is that if you're the Medusa, it's a bit different. He needs to maximize farm, but you're the aggressor, right? So you need to make sure you're maxing out on your potential to be aggressive at all times. And guess what? You died because you've been sitting here. Maybe not die. Oh, okay, you actually own him. Fair enough, fair enough. In this case, going back to base is really good. bounty runes are coming out,
Radiant's middle
so I
tower
would
is under
immediately
attack.
run bottom. Ew. So I would have almost certainly TP'd bottom and brought a dust. You have a Faceless Void off lane. Okay, whatever. He has Chrono, though. And there's just no reason for you to go mid anymore. You've sufficiently owned the Medusa, and anything you do mid now is just kind of be inefficient. So you may say, BSJ, I'm really close to a blink. I'm looking to farm, whatever. Why not farm somewhere else? Like, you're not pressuring mid anymore. Notice how Medusa's kind of just going to start rotating between lane and jungle. At some point, you have to start prioritizing pressuring other heroes. So I'm not telling you to stop farming, but why not go bottom and push the Riki out of lane, force a reaction kind of thing. That's the idea that I want you to think about, is at what point is like it better for one of my supports to take mid. The way you're playing is kind of going to result in one of your supports never getting levels, and also like nothing getting done on the map because you're only playing around your lane rather than playing around others. So in this case, it seems like a small thing, but I think it's a pretty big deal that you don't go bottom right there. It's 10-minute bounties. Yes, you're probably not going to get them, but there's going to be heroes there. You have a Faceless Void with Chrono. It's the same as having any offlaner with an ult. You're very strong, and you can effectively bully their carry out of lane if you just walk at him. It doesn't even have to be that you kill him. You can just walk at him, and he's out of lane. So I want you to think about what this carry would do if you walked at him. Like, what would he do? And the answer is you'd actually have to leave or die. That's his two choices. So I would have bought a dust and walked at the Riki. Okay. Instead, you're going to start invading a little bit of farm. At least you're playing very aggressively on the map, but notice how you're not actually stopping Medusa from doing anything. I can kind of just understand this from experience sake that this was going to be the case, but I want you to recognize what I'm saying and how if I can tell you ahead of time that's going to happen, you can learn to recognize it ahead of time as well. So now you just have this blink. Now you TP bottom. That's late. Notice what I said there. I want you to try to understand all the reasoning that I came up with. It's not a coincidence that all the shit happened bottom. Your Faceless Void has Chrono. Riki's vulnerable. Your team tried to make a move. You weren't there. Guess what? You know, it all works out in the end. Hey, the Riki's gonna die. Oh, you don't have dust. I highly recommend that you always think about the tools needed to kill people. If they have Potom, you should have dust. They have Riki, you should have dust. They have Bounty Hunter, you should have dust. You're a kill hero. Good rotation either way. Just, you know, done improperly and done late. It should have been done 3 minutes earlier and with dust. The game's really hard though, right? Like, your team lost your other lanes. You're the only one on your team doing well. But that makes it even more important that you're as active as possible on the map. As early as possible. And if you watch teams like OG, I know they're like the best in the world, but they don't require their items. They require understanding the opponent doesn't want me there. So if they don't want me there, I should just go there. Like, that's the better way to think about it rather than thinking about I need my blink, I'm going to go farm. Because you can still get that farm while putting yourself in a better place on the map to be effectively applying more pressure while you farm.
Just with death's bounty.
So I'm not telling you to be as good as OG, I'm just telling you to shift your perspective a little bit. Good kill. Still a rough game though. Tiny's also very bad versus Medusa, so I'd recommend just banning Medusa every game. That matchup's unfucking playable. I don't really think it's okay for you to farm this game. I know that you want to, but you go against Wraith King Medusa. Like, you're now... the mangoes are very inefficient, by the way. Clarities are way better now. You should fly yourself Clarities. And you should consider not clearing waves as fast, meaning that you just hit them with your tree, except that it's a little bit slower, but that you have enough mana to stay on the map. You TPing top implies that nothing's going to be done. That's how the dead lane concept works. The concern about the dead lane is if you're too weak to go there, you die. If you're too strong to go there, that means your team's effectively accomplishing nothing. So both of those things need to not apply to your hero. Meaning, if you go there and your team can function without you, great. And you're strong enough to live, great. If any of those cases don't exist, you should never go to your own dead lane. That's just how it is. So UT being top there is usually pretty bad. I would have kept the aggression up, whether or not that's looking for a kill, whether or not that's continuously pressuring mid in terms of the lane being pushed in and trying to hit the tower. Taking your foot off the pedal is not going to win you this game against these heroes, right? Now they're just taking your tower. Guess what happens when you surrender map control by having bad TPs? The opponent just gets more than they should. That's the results. That's always the net result. The opponent gets more map control than they should. So when you put your strongest hero in the dead lane, the opponent's just going to naturally reap the entire map of farm and potentially take objectives. So I just want you to see the impact that UT being top had here. It allowed the opponent to literally walk at your tower bottom with no trade going on. Like, that's... the only time you can really ever TP there as the strongest hero in the game is after you've, like, already won a fight and there's nothing to accomplish other than push out lanes. So that's really the only exception here. The whole enemy team's here. This is scary. They probably have wards since 5 of them are here.
Radiant's middle tower, Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
Notice how all the things I'm telling you are focused on you playing the map properly as an individual. And even though your teammates are bad, these things can be done in the game. So yeah, it's understandable this game is pretty much unwinnable. You'd have to play near flawlessly to win this game, based on the lineups and based on how your other lanes went. My goal here is to tell you that maybe if the game were a bit closer and you did the things I'm telling you correctly, you would have been able to win this game. Some games you're going to be able to farm your way into it, some games you're just not. And this is definitely one of those just not games. I would have considered even going drums before Blink, such that the aggression is more continuous rather than waiting until you blink. Like if you had drums and just ran at that Riki and just kept running at people, that would have probably been a better pace for the game than going straight for the blink. Just worth considering, but if you're going to go for the blink, you have to also understand that you cannot wait until you get that blink to go. It's just too late against heroes like you're playing against. The way to deal with Medusas is to slow them down as long as possible, and then there's a point where it's really hard to pressure them. You pressure the rest of their team, because guess what? The Medusa's useless. So the way to punish the Medusa at that stage, once she's at that point where you can't pressure her anymore, is to capitalize on the fact that she's not going to help her team at all. And that's really important, and you didn't do that this game. You did the pressuring and winning your lane against Medusa part, and then you didn't go punish your team for not having a mid laner. At this point, the game's just really hard. You die to pretty much everything. Witch Doctor's really good against your hero. Riki, obviously really good at catching you, and your team just pretty useless this game. So the game is over at this point. I'm just telling you, I'm not going to watch anymore because the game's absolutely over. There's nothing you can do. But this is why like hero spamming's a little bit rough, just because if there's ever heroes that are good against yours, you just can't beat them. I think Tiny is literally unplayable into heroes like Medusa. Past like the first 20 minutes, you just can't do anything to those heroes. So the only thing you can do in these games is to play absolutely flawlessly for the first like 15 minutes of the game and make as much space as possible and create as much pressure on the map such that your teammates will be able to carry you. And I think that not going bottom at 11 minutes was a really big deal this, or 10 minutes was a really big deal this game. And I think, I hope you saw why. And then you saw the impact of TPing to your own safe lane. I talked about the aggression in lane. You really need to consider that. And I think those are really the main highlights for what you can get better at in the near future. Other things will come. Like if you start to try to focus on harassing people rather than going for denies, a lot of other problems will arise from that. Talked about the bottle. The bottle thing is really indicative of your issues. Usually you can tell someone's issues from basic things that go on in the lane. If I see somebody that's chilling at 500 health or half health on Tiny before their bottle for 2 minutes, that usually tells me they don't understand the idea of continuously pressuring the map, because you're not doing it 3 minutes into the game. You're not continuously pressuring the guy you're in lane against. So you need to harness those skills early and understand. You can watch, like, the only way to learn these things is to watch other players. You're probably not going to get much information on tiny mid right now from better players because it just ain't a hero. But you can watch how often they're capped out when they're the aggressor. Like, you can watch replays of heroes that they're meant to win the lane. They're meant to bully the other guy. It's their job to pressure. And you can watch how often they're capped out, what they do after they get a kill, you know, how, like map movements, all that kind of stuff. Because you obviously won your lane. So I think a lot of this loss is partially due to it being a really bad tiny game. But when it's a really bad tiny game, what that implies is you just have to play better than you normally would if it were a good tiny game. So good tiny games imply you can kind of just kill all their cores with your avalanche toss combo, and pretty much only Riki dies, and you didn't even try to punish the Riki before you had blink. Yeah, so I think that's good enough for a replay analysis. Hope you learned something, sir.
A few moments later.
What if your tower mid is dying? That just boils down to telling your supports to take it. Like, if he's running back to base, he should be fully aware that he shouldn't be going back to mid. And so it's his job to be like, guys, I'm leaving mid, take lane. And if nobody takes it, fuck, you know, that's life. Well, that's an actually good communication that should be done as a mid laner. You should know that when you leave mid as mid, you should tell your teammates that they can take XP there. Because most supports in your bracket are probably too scared to willingly take your farm because they think you'll rage at them. How do you develop where your opponents don't want you to be skill? It boils down to growing your understanding of how that hero wants to play. Do they want to fight? Do they want to skirmish? Can they kill my hero? A lot of it has to do with, you know, do they want to fight? Do they want to farm? Is my hero good against theirs? That kind of thing. It's like if I'm a PL and the opponent has an Ember, I don't want him near me. I don't do anything to Ember, and Ember does so much to me. But if I'm a lifestealer and they have a PL, that PL doesn't give a fuck if I show up in his lane. Like, he doesn't give a shit. You know? It's just all about understanding, like, what the hero wants to do and what heroes on your team stop him from doing that. And, like, Riki just wants to chill in his own safe lane and farm until he gets Diffusal. And by no means does he want a mid-tiny running at him. Like, that's just not what he wants, right? Think about it. Like, if you're a Riki safe lane, would you want a tiny running at you? No. Like, you're forced to rotate out of your lane. What else are you going to do? He either kills you or he TPs out. Like, what's he going to do? And when I say kills you, I mean he tries to kill you. And is he going to kill a 1500 HP, 12 armor tiny? No. Like, it's not what he's going to do. So, it's kind of understanding, like, what the opponent's capability of their hero is against your own. And then realizing, like, hey, this guy can't do shit to me. It's the same thing as in the lane. Like, if the guy's hero can't do anything to you, like when it was on his high ground and the Medusa would have to choose between hitting him or getting the creep, it's like, that's an example of if he can't do anything to you, he's put in a really rough position. He's either choosing to harass you or not get the last hit. And so that's a small example of that. And it's about creating as many of those situations as possible. And then capitalizing on them.